All right, let's start at the very beginning. We as a church began to get words concerning who we were going to be and what God was going to do with us way before we even planted a church. Several of the prophetic words that we received said that God was going to give us land that we would call home, and that He would accelerate us, and that we were going to grow at an exponential rate.
When we started Legacy Center Church in North Raleigh, we were thankful for the space we had. We knew that we would soon outgrow it very soon. The space was wide, but it only had 2 rooms for our little kids. By the 6th month, it was clear that we had to move. We began our journey to look for buildings that we could acquire and repurpose for our use. Everywhere we went, banks told us no, that we were too young as a church and we needed more time.
So even with the finances that we had saved and the clear evidence that we had been good stewards of what God had given us, every door seemed to close until the Lord led us to our current location in Cary, North Carolina. We moved into our current space in August of 2017. When we signed the lease, we knew that it was an in-between place and not a permanent place. We understood that God was showing us how to steward 4,800 square feet before He could give us more. And this place has done just that. We have learned how to take care of a facility and learn how to use the resources we have with wisdom. But that's not the point of this video, so let's get up to date with why we're telling this story.
In the fall of 2018, we knew that God still wanted us to go forward and build in a place that we could create a legacy for Him in the earth. We knew He needed us to create a place where we could help people transform and heal people, who in turn will help heal the nations. We began to search for land, and we found some. Some were a little too far, some were too small. In the midst of looking for land, we connected with a builder by a search online. But it wasn't just a simple search. When we met him in person, we found out that his parents were missionaries in Cameroon, Africa. So he and I connected, and we had a kindred bond. He was excited to help us, this young church builders, church planters, on our journey to plant a church.
He explained to us how much land we needed and how many square feet were feasible and what the cost was going to be. We continued on the land search until we even lost our first agent. We ran her down. Until one day I was driving home and I saw a sign for some land, so I decided to call that agent. When I called, they said that 2 acres of land was almost $1 million. I said, we can't afford that, but what we were looking for, we told her what we were looking for is at least 5 acres of land, around $300,000. The agent proceeded to tell me that it was going to be impossible to find that kind of land in the area because of all the churches that are moving in. In our talking, we found out he was a man of faith, and he said his church had just bought 25 acres, so he would search. After a couple of minutes of searching, he said he found something that was unbelievable. He said there were 10 acres of land for just over $400,000. He gave me the address and I Googled it right away.
To our surprise, the land is in a great location, so immediately we notified all the elders at the church and we went to see the land. When we got there, we felt a peace, the Lord, peace from the Lord, peace on the land. Everyone agreed that the place looked and felt like home. The land was perfected.
Not to mention there was a Target, a Chick-fil-A, a Starbucks, and a brand new hotel all down the street. We then contacted the agent and said that we were interested in moving forward. We also let our builder know, so he came on board with us and began to do some of the due diligence, examining the land, making sure that it was zoned for a church, and making sure that the city was okay with us putting the kind of building that we wanted to put there. Everything was checking out just fine from the city and from the builders, and we, alongside the agents, were excited. Just when we thought we were ready to move forward, the sellers requested approval from the Army Corps of Engineers.
Apparently, several other people had attempted to buy the same land so they could build apartments or shopping centers on all the 10 acres. The sellers had found that a section of the land proved problematic. The sellers did not want to proceed with a contract with us until we had proven to them that we could build our church on the land.
Because we had the conviction of the Lord, and we went ahead and we did what it took. It took several thousands of dollars, but we did all the work, and we began the church building fund here at Legacy. We met with the town to address the sellers' concerns, and we put in an offer in May. With this new development, though, the sellers received multiple offers and accepted another buyer's offer. Where do they do that at?
To our amazement and disappointment, the sellers received and accepted a different offer on the same week that we put in our offer on the land. All the work we had done from January to May seemed to have gone out of the window. We regrouped and moved on. We found that we thought it was wiser to look for other buildings that were already established instead of building from the ground up.
Deep in our hearts, though, we knew that this was our land. I knew that the peace that I had felt, and I knew that because of the apostolic call in our lives, we were not just called to upfit a building, but we were called to pioneer. We were called to buy land, take dominion, and establish the will of God in the earth. And so in that moment, I declared that whatever offer would come through, it would also fall through. And we left everything in the hands of the Lord.
Well, sure enough, the first offer fell through, and our agent advised us that the sellers were willing to accept a renewed, improved offer from us. It appeared matching our competitors' offer was desirous for them, and we decided to stick with our initial offer on the land and not go over that.
So, speed up to August, we heard that they had a second offer that had gone in, and I just kept saying to the Lord that this is our land and that every offer would fall through. The first week of September, we were invited to join our pastors in Omaha, Nebraska, and knowing that weekend was going to be something, so we took the opportunity to join them in that amazing weekend.
The first day was just out of this world. The pastor of Michael Todd and the founding pastor of Transformation Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He shared the supernatural story and the persistence that they had in attaining what was supposed to be a $55 million building for only $11 million. The faith work in that story and all the background details charged me with so much faith that I couldn't wait for Dr. Faith to get home so I could share with her all that I've learned and what God was doing for them.
I arrived a day late because I had to take care of some things at home, but I was so excited to hear the testimony of what God had done for Transformation Church, and I could just feel that this weekend was going to be momentous. That night we had a service with Bishop Tudor Bismarck, and in that service he taught us on prophetic instinct, which is the ability to just know what the will of God is. As he spoke, I knew that the Lord was restating and reaffirming that the land was ours and that we needed to do the will of God and check to see if it was still available.
The next night, Bishop Tudor Bismarck shared many stories of faith, including how God had come through for his congregation during a season when its church had no home for 2 years. He stated that they were believing God for a breakthrough, and a well-known spiritual leader in the country called him and declared over him that in 10 days they would have a building after being without one for 2 years. The story that Bishop Tudor Bismarck shared and how they arrived at that building by the 10th day charged our faith even more. At the end of that service, we received the prophetic word that some people here were believing God for buildings and God would do something for them in 10 days. Now, if that wasn't enough, it went on to say that some are contending for buildings and there was confusion over the land, which is a word that God had already given to us, and it directed us on a prophetic exercise. And at this point, our faith was at 100%, and we proceeded with what He instructed us.
The cool thing about this word is that we received it on the 11th day of our 21-day fast. So we had 10 more days in that fast, and we were going to contend for the word alongside 1,500 people that had joined us for the fast that year. The Lord also had given us a word that September that there was something big that was getting ready to take place, and that God was releasing things that we had never seen before, and it was going to blow us out of the water.
With an oily paper in hand and faith in our hearts, we headed home. At the airport, I decided to call the land agent and asked him if that land was still available. At this point, we were only working with a third real estate agent who specializes in commercial properties. Our land agent introduced us to him. We said that, he said he would check, and he checked and let us know that land was still available. He said he was going to finalize and double check to make sure that, we could still move on the land. And so I'd made a radical move. I told the agent, offer the sellers $300,000 cash and let them know we're ready to pay right now. We knew that it has taken us 3 years to save. At Legacy Center Church at this point, nobody had been on salary, and so we knew that even though the banks were not going to give us a loan, that we could pay cash. And so the sellers were probably more ready to offer now, since a couple of the offers had fallen through.
A commercial agent called the land agent, and we thank God for men of faith because both of them agreed that they would work together, and they sent our offer to the sellers and we completed our prophetic exercise. So let me share this. One of the things that Bishop Bismarck shared was the testimony that 20 years ago he had declared that land he had seen would be his, and he had put coins in that land. Well, guess what? His church is now building a $25 million building on that land he consecrated. God moves require God-sized faith, and we were ready to do that.
So just as God would have it, it wasn't until the 10th day that we heard back from the sellers. And they had a counter offer, and they were willing to sell the land for $365,000, with us giving them $300,000 cash and paying off the rest later.
When I heard this offer, I told my husband, let's just give them what they're asking us for. We already know that this is less than what we had already offered them back in March, which they had turned down. I knew that God was working on our behalf, and I said, let's offer them the full $365,000.
My wife was really enthusiastic, as she always is, but still we needed to do our due diligence and make sure that the offer was fair. And we spoke with our agent. We decided to offer them $362,000 with a $300,000 cash and $62,000 over 2 years.
When we gave them this offer, it was around September 23rd or 24th. We prayed and rested in the prophetic words that had gone before. On the morning of September 30th, Pastor Soso led prayer, and he declared with great faith and conviction that something big was going to happen. It was the last day of September. That morning, we proceeded with our normal day, and at around 11 a.m., our offer was accepted, and we were so excited to share what God had done with the church.
We spent the last couple months completing important tests on the land to make sure that the land is still feasible for what we want to build on the land. And on December 10th, 2019, we officially closed on 10 acres of land. 3-year church in one of the fastest growing places in the United States of America.
The story doesn't end there. Our agent connected us to an amazing lawyer who has worked with churches for years. He then connected us to amazing accountants who are believers and work with churches by helping them prepare loan applications to the bank so that they could begin the building process. The next phase is working with the banks for financial purposes and for the building. We look forward to sharing some exciting news with you very soon.
We are excited about building in 2020. We have bought the land for legacy. Now it is time for us to build a legacy home.